My parents always said I was their golden child, but that changed the moment Liam was born. He was the perfect, sweet little brother, and I was the rebellious older sister. I did what I wanted, when I wanted, and I didn't care about the consequences. I was a talented artist, but I refused to take it seriously, and my parents were always disappointed in me. Liam, on the other hand, was a model son. He was a straight-A student, a star athlete, and a kind and thoughtful person. He was everything I wasn't, and I hated him for it. The final straw came when Liam got into Harvard. My parents were ecstatic. They threw a huge party to celebrate his acceptance, and they didn't even bother to invite me. I saw them through the window, laughing and hugging him, and I felt a pang of jealousy so intense it made my stomach hurt. I was so angry, I didn't even think twice about what I was about to do. I called the police and told them there was a loud party next door with underage drinking. I gave them our address and hung up before they could ask any more questions. I watched from the shadows as the police cars pulled up and ruined their celebration. My parents were furious, and Liam was devastated. I finally got what I wanted, their attention, even if it was for all the wrong reasons. This is the price of sibling rivalry, and I'm about to pay for it. I'm going to tell you how I got to this point, how I destroyed my family, and how I'm now forced to live with the consequences. If you want to see how this story unfolds, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single chapter. The police raid was a disaster. My parents were fined for the noise complaint, and my brother was left with a permanent scar on his academic record. The celebration turned into a tense, silent dinner, and I watched from the stairs as my parents looked at me with disappointment and anger. Liam didn't say a word to me, but I saw the pain in his eyes. He didn't understand why I did it, and I couldn't bring myself to explain it. I felt a fleeting sense of victory, but it was quickly replaced by a gnawing emptiness. The next few weeks were a blur of cold shoulders and silent treatments. My parents barely spoke to me, and Liam avoided me completely. The house, once filled with laughter and chatter, was now a tomb of silence and resentment. I spent my days in my room, listening to music and drawing, trying to drown out the noise of my own thoughts. I knew what I did was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to apologize. My pride was too strong, and I was convinced that I was in the right. I was tired of being the black sheep, and I thought my actions would finally make them see my pain, but it only made things worse. I started to feel isolated and alone. My friends, who had always been my escape from my family, started to pull away. They saw the tension in my house and didn't want to be a part of it. I was a pariah, a ghost in my own home. I tried to talk to my mom, but she just sighed and walked away. My dad, who had always been my biggest supporter, now looked at me with a mix of sadness and disgust. The family I once knew was gone, and it was all my fault. The silence in our house became unbearable. We ate dinner in separate rooms, and we communicated through text messages, even when we were in the same house. My dad tried to talk to me once, but I shut him down. He asked me why I did it, and I just shrugged and said, it was a joke. He looked at me with such disappointment that I had to look away. He didn't say another word, and I knew I had broken him. I saw him talking to my mom in the living room, his hands on his head, and I knew they were talking about me. I heard my mom crying, and I felt a small pang of guilt, but I quickly pushed it away. I told myself they deserved it. They chose Liam over me, and they were paying the price. I started spending more time at my friend Chloe's house. She was my only real friend left, and she didn't judge me. She just listened to me vent about my family, and she offered me a place to stay. I told her everything, and she just nodded, her eyes full of sympathy. She knew I was a mess, but she didn't abandon me. She was my lifeline, my only connection to the outside world. I knew I was lucky to have her, but I was too selfish to admit it. One day, I came home from Chloe's to find my parents and Liam sitting at the kitchen table. They looked at me with a mix of anger and sadness. My mom told me that Liam had decided to defer his acceptance to Harvard for a year to get a job and help with the family finances. I was shocked. I didn't know how to react. I had caused all this, and Liam was the one paying the price. My heart felt heavy, but I couldn't bring myself to show any emotion. I just stared at them, and then I walked away. Liam's decision to defer his admission to Harvard sent shockwaves through our family. My parents were devastated, and they blamed me. My mom cried every night, and my dad worked extra shifts to make up for the financial loss. I tried to ignore it, to pretend it wasn't my fault, but the guilt was a heavy weight on my chest. I saw Liam every day, going to his new job at a local grocery store, his shoulders slumped and his eyes full of exhaustion. I knew he was working hard to support us, to make up for my mistake, and I hated myself for it. The house was a battlefield of silent accusations. My parents treated me like a stranger, and Liam wouldn't even look at me. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I tried to apologize to Liam once, but he just shook his head and walked away. He didn't want my apology, and I didn't know how to give it to him. I was a monster, and I knew it. I started to have nightmares about that night. I saw the police cars, the flashing lights, and the look on my parents' faces. I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't escape the memory, and I couldn't escape the guilt. I was trapped in a prison of my own making, and I didn't know how to get out. My family was broken, and I was the one who broke it. I had everything I ever wanted: their attention, their anger, their resentment. But it wasn't enough. I was alone, and I had no one to blame but myself. The silence was deafening, and I knew I had to do something, anything, to fix it. I just didn't know what. If you are still watching, please consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean the world to me. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't live with this guilt any longer. I went to Liam's room and knocked on the door. He didn't answer. I knocked again, and this time, he opened it. He looked tired and angry, but I didn't back down. I took a deep breath and said, "Liam, I'm so sorry. I was jealous of you, and I did a terrible thing. I didn't mean to hurt you or our family. I was so angry, and I didn't know what to do." He looked at me for a long time, his eyes searching mine. I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a cold, hard stare. He said, "Your apology is too late. You broke our family. You took my dreams away, and you have no idea what it feels like." He closed the door, and I was left standing in the hallway, my heart heavy with regret. I tried to talk to my parents, but they wouldn't listen. They said they were tired of my apologies, that my actions had already spoken for themselves. I was a stranger in my own home, a ghost haunting the halls of my family's memories. I was alone, and I had no one to blame but myself. I started to spiral. I stopped going to school, I stopped drawing, and I stopped talking to my friends. I was a shell of the person I used to be. The guilt was a heavy weight on my chest, and I couldn't breathe. I was drowning in my own misery, and I didn't know how to save myself. I had to face the consequences of my actions, and it was a more painful punishment than I could have ever imagined. The silence was too much. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked into the living room where my parents were watching TV. I stood in front of them, my hands shaking, and I said, "I have something to confess." My parents looked at me, their faces a mix of confusion and anger. "I'm the one who called the police," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm the one who ruined Liam's party. I'm the one who did all of this." My parents stared at me, their eyes wide with disbelief. My mom started to cry, and my dad just shook his head, his face a mask of disappointment. He said, We knew it was you. We just couldn't bring ourselves to believe it." His words were like a dagger to my heart. They knew all along, and they didn't do anything. They let me suffer, and they let Liam suffer, and they let our family fall apart. My dad told me that I had a choice to make. I could either go to therapy and try to fix myself, or I could leave and never come back. I was stunned. I never thought my parents would give up on me. I looked at their faces, and I saw a deep-seated weariness. They were tired of my drama, tired of my selfishness, tired of me. I had pushed them too far, and there was no going back. I left the house that day with a small bag of clothes and my sketchbook. I didn't say goodbye. I couldn't. I was too ashamed, too broken. I walked out of my family's life, and I didn't look back. I was a runaway, a pariah, a ghost. I had no one, and I had nowhere to go. My actions had finally caught up with me, and I was left to face the consequences alone. I ended up at Chloe's house, and she took me in. She didn't ask any questions. She just hugged me and told me everything was going to be okay. But it wasn't. I was a burden, a problem, a runaway. I tried to find a job, but no one would hire me. I was a high school dropout with no experience and no future. I was a failure, and I knew it. I spent my days at Chloe's, drawing and thinking about what I had done. I thought about Liam, his dreams, his future. I had taken it all away from him. And for what? A moment of fleeting jealousy, a moment of misplaced anger. I was a fool, and I was paying the price. My parents and Liam didn't try to contact me. They didn't call. They didn't text. They didn't send an email. I was gone, and they didn't care. I was a ghost, a memory, a stranger. I was alone, and I was terrified. One day, I was at a coffee shop, sketching in my notebook. I saw a news report on the TV. It was about a young man who had been accepted into Harvard, but had decided to defer his admission to help his family. They showed a picture of him, and I saw his face. It was Liam. The reporter talked about his sacrifice, his kindness, his dedication. I felt a pang of guilt so intense it made my stomach hurt. I had a moment of clarity. I saw myself for who I really was, a selfish, bitter, and hateful person. I had to change. I had to atone for my sins. I had to face my family, and I had to beg for their forgiveness. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I had to try. I had to do something, anything, to make things right. I was a monster, but I had to become a human again. If you are enjoying this series, please make sure to subscribe and share this video with your friends. I went back home. The house was quiet, and the door was unlocked. I walked in, my heart pounding in my chest. My parents were in the living room, and Liam was in his room. My mom saw me first, and her eyes widened in shock. My dad stood up, his face a mix of anger and surprise. I said, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I messed up, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. I've been thinking about everything I've done, and I'm a changed person. I'm not that selfish, bitter girl anymore. I want to make things right, and I want to be a part of this family again." My parents looked at me for a long time, and then my mom started to cry. She came and hugged me, and I felt a flood of relief. My dad just nodded and he said, "We'll see." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. It was a start. I went to Liam's room and knocked on the door. He opened it, and he looked at me with a mix of surprise and confusion. I said, "Liam, I'm so sorry. I was a terrible sister, and I have no excuse for what I did. I took away your dream, and I'm so sorry. I want to help you get back to Harvard. I'll get a job. I'll save up. I'll do whatever it takes. I want to make things right." Liam looked at me, and he saw the sincerity in my eyes. He nodded and he said, "It's a start." I was so relieved. I had a chance to make things right. I was going to fight for my family, and I was going to fight for Liam's future. The road to redemption was long and hard. I got a job at a local coffee shop, and I worked tirelessly to save money for Liam's tuition. I took classes at a community college, and I started to take my art seriously. I even sold a few of my drawings, and I used the money to help my family. My relationship with my family was still fragile, but it was getting better. We started to talk again, to laugh again, to be a family again. Liam and I started to talk more, and we even started to hang out. I apologized to him countless times, and he always told me it was okay. He was a good person, and he was my brother. One day, I came home from work, and I saw a letter on the kitchen table. It was from Harvard, and it was addressed to Liam. My heart pounded in my chest as I handed it to him. He opened it and his eyes widened. He had been accepted again, with a full scholarship. I hugged him, and I cried. I was so proud of him. He deserved it. He deserved to have his dreams come true. I had almost taken it all away from him, but he had fought back. He had worked hard, and he had persevered. He was my hero, and I was so lucky to have him as my brother. I finally found my place in the family. It wasn't as the golden child, but as a loving sister, and that was all I ever wanted. The day Liam left for Harvard, the autumn air at the airport was crisp and cold, but a warmth radiated from our small family huddle. My mom's tears flowed freely, a mix of sadness and immense pride. My dad, usually stoic, kept a firm arm around my mom's shoulders, his own eyes glistening. And I, who had once wished for this moment for all the wrong reasons, found myself crying along with them, but for a reason I never thought possible: joy. We hugged him one last time, a true family embrace that felt different from any we'd shared before. Liam's hug for me was long, a silent acknowledgement of the long road we'd traveled. He pulled back. a soft, genuine smile on his face. "Thank you for everything," he said, and his words were a balm to my soul. Soothing wounds I hadn't known were still open. I knew I hadn't made up for everything I had done, but in that moment, in his eyes, I saw that my effort was what truly mattered. I went back to college and continued to pursue my art with a renewed passion. The angry, bitter person I once was gone, replaced by a confident woman with a purpose. My sketches, once filled with dark, resentful lines, now burst with vibrant colors and light. My art became my voice, a way to express the hope and gratitude I felt every day. My family's love, once a privilege I took for granted, was now a gift I cherished and worked to earn. My family and I grew closer than ever. We talked on the phone every day, filling Liam in on the small, everyday details of our lives. We'd visit him at Harvard whenever we could, wandering through the historic campus, talking about his classes and his new friends. We were a family again, stronger and more connected than before. I had learned a valuable lesson, that a family's love is a precious gift, one that should never be taken for granted. It had to be nurtured and protected, not used as a weapon. I still have nightmares about that night, about the flashing lights and the look on my parents' faces, but they don't haunt me anymore. They are a reminder of who I was, a necessary anchor to my past, but they no longer define me. I am a woman who made a terrible mistake, but I am also a woman who learned from it and fought for redemption. I am a sister, a daughter, a friend. I am a person, and I am a survivor. This is my story, and at long last, I am at peace. Thank you for watching this series. If you want to see more stories of redemption and growth, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell.